Tepache, or Tepache de Piña, also called pineapple beer, is a fermented Mexican beverage that is dated back to the pre-Columbian era. It is a probiotic drink perfect for summer and may contain a low-level alcohol. The upside of making Tepache is it uses pineapple peel and the core for brewing, which is naturally thrown out, so there will be no waste when eating the fruit. This recipe will go through a secondary fermentation, but it's a relatively quick process. Note that it requires a minimum 4-liter container. Glass or ceramic either works. The foundational ingredients are 2 pineapples that weigh 1.5 kilograms, filtered water, and 200 grams of sugar. The authentic sugar is piloncillo, a cold brown sugar made of cane juice, but it's nowhere to find in the market, so I just use turbinado or light brown sugar. Tepache is usually flavored with these spices: cinnamon, cloves, and star anise. To amplify the flavor, crush the cloves and break the cinnamon sticks. Ginger is optional. If you use it, cut it into 3mm wide slices. These pineapples have just arrived, and they came with no crown. Be aware that the bottom is easy to grow mold. Actually, this one already has some mold, and this one is about to. By the way, don't worry about washing the pineapples. I've rinsed them under the tap water thoroughly and used paper towels to pat them dry. Some pineapples have hidden dirty stuff on the skin, so I would wipe the skin till the paper towel's clean. Look how dirty this one is, while this one is much cleaner. Next is to peel the pineapples. As said, the bottom has a little mold, so throw this piece away. Then cut the other end. Tepache usually uses rind only, but by adding some flesh, it adds flavor. So when peeling, cut it into 1.5 to 2 centimeters thick and run the knife straight down. Then cut around the core. The core will be used for brewing as well. Regarding the flesh, you can just eat it, but I'd suggest you save about a cup in the refrigerator, and you'll know why later. Regarding the peel, I'd just cut it into big chunks. No need to be meticulous, as I just want them to fit into the container. Cut the core into chunks as well, and repeat with the other pineapple. Now add sugar into the container, pour in some water, stir to dissolve the sugar. Feel free to add more water if the crystals are not fully dissolved. Add half the pineapple peel chunks and add the ginger and all other spices, and top with the remaining pineapples. Add plenty of water, swirl to fill the spaces, and add more water if needed, leaving about 5 centimeters to the top. Use a spoon to mix for a couple of minutes till every bit of the ingredients has had a chance to be fully covered with the syrup. Then cover with a cloth and tie with a string or rubber band. Mark the starting date and put the jar somewhere safe in your home to start the first fermentation process. The temperature in my kitchen at the time of making ranges from 30 to 31 degrees, which is quite high, so the fermentation will be fast. Give it a stir once in a while to even the acidity of the mixture and prevent the pineapples on the top from going moldy. And remember to put it somewhere sturdy at home. This is after 8 hours, and there are already some bubbles. I'll give it a quick stir and try to replace pineapples on the top with ones underneath. Then I'm going to bed. After 24 hours, there is a layer of white foam on the top and quite some bubbles on the pineapples, even on the cinnamon sticks. Give it a good stir and have a taste. It starts to taste like fermentation, but a bit bland and still quite sweet. By now, there's sediment at the bottom already. Anyway, I'm going to cover it and leave it to ferment further. Want to see how active the bacteria are? This is just 2 hours after stirring, and it is already an interesting and active world. By this rate, I suppose the first fermentation will be done soon. So within less than 48 hours, the mixture itself is still quite active, but not as fanatic as yesterday. The foam on the top looks almost like stew scums, but the side is still white. This layer looks ugly, but if you don't see mold, it's perfectly normal. Press it down and you'll see white foamy bubbles. Quite a lot this time. Again, after a good stirring, have a taste. For the first fermentation, you can stop the process anytime when you think the taste is to your liking. Some likes the sweeter and some more alcoholic. I like it to have a light fermented taste and not too sweet, and my experience tells me it'll be too easy for me if left to ferment longer. So I'm gonna stop the first fermentation. Because this is a big container, I'll strain it twice. First through a coarse colander to break the pineapples, and then through a muslin cloth to break any small pieces and segments. After that, transfer the liquid into plastic bottles, leaving about 5 centimeters or 2 inches to the top. This recipe yields 2 1-liter bottles. The secondary fermentation is anaerobic, so tighten the lid and don't forget to mark the date. I'm using a coffee filter to make a little Mexican head to demonstrate this is a Mexican-style drink. Well, just to have a little fun. So now the liquid will go through a second fermentation where it'll continue to break down the sugar and therefore produce carbon dioxide. You may have already learned from the last episode of Dew, the uranium fermented yogurt soda, regarding how to judge a secondary fermentation. That is, the bottles harden and the caps bulge. Depending on your kitchen temperature, it could take from 1 day like this one to a few days. If you think they're ready, just put them into the refrigerator to chill overnight. And the next day, it's ready to be served. This one, though, doesn't have an effervescent, gassy sound when opening the lid. And when poured into glass, the foam on the top isn't very thick, but it tastes just right for me. As someone who can't drink, I won't get a blush out of it. But if you prefer a stronger fermentation taste, you can always leave the bottle on the counter for a couple or even a few days. It'll harden again and produce more gas. But just remember, don't over-ferment it. Regarding the strain of pineapples, I think the bacteria and the yeast should still be active. So I decided to do an experiment, which is to reuse them to start a new batch. I also decided to use a combination of sugars. 120 grams of fine sugar and 30 grams of dark brown sugar. Then add 1,800 ml of filtered water, give it a mix, cover, leave it on the kitchen counter. 1 day later, the batch is very active, but the overall flavor is a bit bland to me. So I decided to add a cup of pineapple cubes that I saved from day one. I also add 1 star anise, 8 allspice berries and crush them to amplify the flavor. And also 40 grams of fine sugar and 10 grams of dark brown sugar. Mix well and cover to ferment. This batch performs well. In less than 2 hours, it is full of life. But watch the container, it may overflow. I left this batch a bit longer on the counter to show you what it looks like. Some people call it Tepache pineapple beer, and this one does represent a beer. Foamy, gassy, and yeasty. Also, the dark brown sugar gives a different flavor. I had to get a blush out of several sips. Anyway, hope you'll try it. Bye for now.